Alrighty. Hello, Patriots. Sorry I have not been on for a long time. Well, I have a video with you, a podcast that me and my mother just recently did exposing the corruption in Arizona. Sorry, it's kind of dark in my room. I wonder if I plug these in. Hold on, if it'll get brighter. Let's see. Oh, yes. All right. So let me go ahead. I'm going to turn my phone to where the light doesn't turn off, so you guys can see. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Just hold on a second. All right, let me go to. Hi, baby. All right, let me go to the thing. Let me go to the video. Here we go. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the imagination. Hold on. I need you guys to let me know if you guys can see the video. To the imagination where everything you think is real. Today's episode to me is a very, very important that I am honored to share with you. I am featuring today Miss Sarah Johnson and her mother Carla, who are going to walk us through a story based around you can't see it. Injustice done by both the justice system, but more so the CPS system, and how that works to help facilitate you can't see it. Child trafficking, which is a topic that we've talked about a lot on this podcast. So without further ado, Sarah, Carla, welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you. A little nervous, it's never easy to do these interviews, but the truth needs to get out there and people need to know what's going on. People need to wake up.
They do. And this topic, I've had one other podcast that discussed CPS, and it was very mind-bending just learning about it, because this isn't something I've been exposed to ever before either. I just thought it was a good organization that was doing a good job. And the worst part is stories like yours and the other person I interviewed, they're far from unique. So it's definitely a topic that I think more people are starting to look into. And I really appreciate you guys coming on, because there's nobody that I personally know that's more of an expert on this topic than you guys. So I guess, why don't we just start from the beginning? For people listening, this may be a 2 or 3 part podcast, depending on how much we get covered today. We want to make sure that information's palatable for you and don't want to talk your ear off for 10 hours at a time. So if it goes for 10 hours, just rest assured we're going to break that up into smaller pieces. But today we're just going to go with the flow and see how much we can get covered. And then we're most likely going to definitely have a second part, but possibly a third. So why don't we just start with an introduction about who you and your mom are, Sarah, and just a little bit of background information before all of these events started happening.
Okay. Well, I'm Sarah. I'm 31, the mother of 4 sons who the state unlawfully took. I don't have a criminal background. I unfortunately did not graduate high school, but most of my life from age 18, and I'm going to be 32 this year, has been revolved around fighting for my children. So I missed a lot of my, in my case, my golden years. Because those are, my childhood, everything.
The bonding time with
Yeah, I missed those golden years. So, go ahead, Mom, introduce yourself. My mom doesn't want to be on camera, everyone, so.
Can you guys all see her photo?
Yeah, go ahead. You can use my photo.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Carla, and I'm Sarah's mother. Sarah is my 4th child. We were just a typical family, living in a pretty nice 4-bedroom home.
It's 5 bedrooms.
5-bedroom home, excuse me. it was me, my two older daughters, Sarah's younger brother, and Sarah. My two granddaughters and Isaiah were all living together in the same home. We shared in the parenting and the babysitting as everybody worked to care for the children. And then when Arizona's Child Protective Services, which is now known as the Department of Child Safety, decided to kidnap my first grandson, Isaiah, it destroyed my whole family. It just destroyed everything, emotionally, financially, structurally.
It tears you down as a person, as a human being.
So we have made it our mission and our goal to, of course, get my grandsons back, but we also want to expose the criminal activity of Child Protective Services nationwide. We want transparency, and we want to reform it. If it has to be shut down and reformed, we want it reformed.
But most importantly, we want these criminals that we're going to name today. I mean, there's 168 people involved, 2 different states, 39 judges, and 13 court-appointed attorneys that are in my case alone. And this was from 2009 till 2015. But I mean, we've still been fighting. And
sorry, that was my phone.
398 human rights violations, and that's just in my case.
Sorry, guys.
So absolutely horrific. And those of you that are listening, you can't see all of the documentation that they've done, but this is going to be a very thorough interview, and I'm actually going to be bringing up evidence and documents and photographs on the screen for you guys to look at with us. So if you're listening, we're going to explain what all of that is as we're going through it. And if you're watching, pay attention to the screen whenever we bring that up, and you guys can actually see what we're talking about for a lot of this, for those of you who are watching on YouTube.
Hold on. With my video right here, like, you can't see the screen, but I don't know how to tell my viewers about this video. Like, I'm not really savvy, or however you want to say it, with YouTube. So this is the best that I got, but I mean, it goes into so much detail of the crimes that they're committing. I mean, it goes so deep. You know, this goes into the Jeffrey Epstein case, and with what's going on in the election. I mean, this goes far. So here you go. So please bear with me. Don't judge me. I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to give y'all the information. This is a podcast that me and my mom did. Emma, amazing. It's called The Imagination Podcast. So if you don't want to watch this, you want to go watch, you're totally fine, because it actually shows documents. I just wanted to get this on here so my viewers could see, even though I got like 40 followers, but I love you all. Here you go.
Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of background. Let's start getting into before all this happened and what was going on in your life at that time, around whenever you had your first child.
You guys can't see that.
Well, Sarah was just 18. And she was, ready to give birth to her first son, Isaiah, in March of 2009. And she was actually admitted to the hospital on March 24th. And her doctor, Dr. Dawn Jenkins, actually had them administer Pitocin to accelerate her labor. And then Dr. Jenkins left the hospital and went to another hospital to deliver another baby. And when she was delayed on returning back to deliver Sarah's child, she had the hospital administer a medication called terbutaline sulfate to stop her labor. Of course, we didn't know this at the time because it was pretty chaotic. But Sarah was in labor for 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Actually 2.5 days. And Isaiah was finally delivered by C-section on March 26th. So she went in the hospital on March 24th. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning on the 26th is when Dr. Jenkins finally took her in for a C-section. And what we, now, Pitocin really has a lot of side effects that they don't tell expectant mothers. And those risks to the mother and the unborn children are retinal hemorrhage, cerebral hemorrhage, that's bleeding on the brain. It causes neonatal jaundice, brain damage, including a condition called hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy and neonatal seizures, including death. Well, that's exactly what happened to Isaiah, is that he was finally diagnosed with the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy and cerebral palsy. Now, everyone knows that cerebral palsy is a birth injury. So, I knew the doctor had made a mistake.
Do you know, are these drugs commonly used?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
They're very common.
Okay.
I knew that Dr. Jenkins had messed up because I saw Isaiah's head and he looked like, remember the old movie with Dan Aykroyd where they have the cones? I forget what it's called.
The cone heads?
Yeah. That's what his head looked like.
Oh.
And I found out that the umbilical cord was actually wrapped around his neck twice. And he went into asphyxiation inside the womb because he was not getting any oxygen. And of course, you know, he went into distress. And I told Dr. Jenkins, I said, you know what? You better get your checkbook out because you just messed up. Well, Dr. Jenkins decided that she was going to cover up her medical malpractice. And she called the social worker at the hospital. This was Arrowhead Hospital in Phoenix. And the note that we found, this was about 7 hours after she delivered Isaiah. The social worker note says that referred to patient by Dr. Jenkins for emotional support. Well, that's where Child Protective Services, and I'll just call it CPS, started tracking Isaiah because he was a medically fragile child.
My son, my
So,
oldest.
Were you aware that they were tracking?
Yeah, we found out that they were, through the records that we got from CPS on several occasions, we found out that before any reports were even made, that they were going into Isaiah's medical records, they were tracking him and Sarah. They wanted that child.
What were they about Sarah? Oh, her.
I'm sorry?
What was it about Sarah, or how she was as a mother, or what was it that they were following you guys so closely for? Because don't they have to have a reason for that?
Yeah, you have to look at the money. If they have a medically fragile child, the federal funding is 3 times the amount.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that makes sense. Hopefully for people listening too. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead on where you left off.
You're fine.
No, so we didn't really know what was wrong with Isaiah because we took him to several doctors and he had several tests, EEGs, EKGs, several, he went to several neurologists because we didn't know what was wrong with him until he was about 7 months old. And we took him to several different pediatricians because we wanted a diagnosis. Well, at 7 months, that's when he was diagnosed with the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy and cerebral palsy. So when he was about 2 months old, we were concerned about his health. So we took him to Phoenix Children's Hospital. And this was in May of 2008. And he was admitted for 5 days. Now, another social worker contacted Sarah. And we found a note that said, suggested to Dr. Carter that mom be observed during nesting. And if there are issues or concerns, or if she, the mother, does not show up, then social worker could consider CPS referral. So this just proves that they were still tracking him. Now, what we found out later on was that Arizona CPS has a contract with Phoenix Children's Hospital, and that is A5, Emma. Phoenix Children's Hospital gets paid $865 for every child they refer to CPS. And this is just when CPS comes and takes a child. I mean, that's not all the money that Phoenix Children's Hospital can earn. They can earn thousands of dollars per child for medical reports, testimony, anything and everything under the sun. So,
wow.
The additional contracts incentivize a financial profit to Phoenix Children's Hospital up to about $6,000. Now, for Arizona CPS to have a contract with Phoenix Children's Hospital, that's a violation of Stark's Law. Stark's Law prohibits referrals that reflect a conflict of interest when there is a financial gain. Now, I found this contract, and I just sent you the price sheet. But after I exposed this on social media, Arizona has taken it down. They removed it. You cannot find this contract anywhere. So they're hiding. They're hiding their contracts. They're hiding their conspiracy and with contracting this hospital. They don't want people to know that Phoenix Children's Hospital gets paid when CPS comes in and takes a child.
Yeah, but it's not a conspiracy, though.
It is a conspiracy. It's conspiracy and collusion.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
you're talking. I'm like, serious. We're not telling false information, people.
when CPS came in and when they kidnapped Isaiah on May 4th, 2009, they made the false allegation that Sarah and then me were medically neglecting him, that he was having seizures. And now we weren't, especially Sarah, wasn't taking him to medical doctors, right? But in the records, years later, we found a note in December of 2008, which is like, 6 months before they kidnapped him? And it was documented by a CPS worker by the name of Joy Taylor. And that is A4.
A4.
They're referring to notes.
Well, I'm bringing that. What you're essentially saying and what I'm hearing is that CPS will track children once they almost get that child on their radar, that they have those issues at birth. And essentially they'll monitor you to look for any reason that they can legally take that child that fits underneath certain criteria, even if it's not necessarily true. They can claim that you're neglecting a child.
Yes.
Even if you're not, and you aren't able to have a say in that. Is
Absolutely.
that essentially how that happens?
Yes.
Well, I mean, we found that to be right on with Sarah's case, with them taking Isaiah. Yes,
They took 4 of my kids.
Unbelievable.
but in December of 2009 or 2008, 6 months before they took him, it says there's a note from this Joy Taylor, and that was A4, December 6, 2008. Data shows that Isaiah was seeing 2 pediatricians, 2 neurologists, and an eye doctor at the moment, as well as going to Phoenix Children's Hospital. He's registered with DDD, which is the Department of Developmental Disabilities and Healthy Families. So they knew 6 months prior to kidnapping him that he had several doctors.
Unbelievable. And you guys can see that on the screen, right?
Yeah, can you zoom in though?
Yeah, good idea.
Sorry.
Yep.
Y'all will be able to see. It's another video, but it's there.
Okay, that's better.
There we go.
Is that better? Is that good?
Yeah.
For people watching, you guys can actually see this official document that Carla's talking about.
Sorry, you can't see it on my thing.
Now, what were
Sorry.
were the doctors, was anybody hinting at you of any type of collusion or saying, I know that they don't openly say that, but were there any clues that you guys had or things that made you start thinking around this time that,
No.
are these people working together on something, or were you?
We had no clue, because we had healthy families coming into our home once a week. We had a worker from the Foundation from the Blind coming into our home once a month, I believe. And everybody always said what a really great job we were doing with Isaiah.
And really, you're just trying to be good parents, grandparents, and find out how to help this child who had these unfortunate.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when the medical professionals can't figure out what's wrong with him. You know, I mean, they thought he was blind. They figured out he wasn't blind. They thought he was having seizures, but he wasn't having seizures. And then 7 months later, he's diagnosed with cerebral palsy and the hypoxic and ischemic encephalopathy. And he was having tonic spasms. He wasn't having seizures. And the tonic spasms is basically involuntary muscle movements. You know, it was kind of like having like epilepsy. He couldn't control it.
Now, what about the doctor that administered this medication? Was there any, did you know at the time was this research that you did after where you were able to put these pieces together that, hey, I think the medication that he administered did this? Or were you thinking that it happened to be just a random birth defect in a sense that?
Well, at first we didn't know why they were giving him anti-seizure medication because, you know, with the doctors, you know, there was Dr. Teodori at Phoenix Children's Hospital. There was other doctors that had given him brain scans. And then there was Dr. Chapman at the Barrows Neurological Institute. They were all consulting each other, and they thought he was having seizures and prescribed phenobarbital. But the phenobarbital, what they found out, was making it worse. And what ultimately the neurologist found out was that he only suffered seizures on day 1 of life. On the day he was born, that's the only time he had a seizure. So they took him off the phenobarbital. And it got better. But when CPS wrote the fraudulent petition to the court, they said, I took him off the phenobarbital.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. But now, in your documents I sent you,
we can get it together, woman. Excuse me.
Exhibit D1.
Here it is. Okay.
Now, this document is dated May 3rd, 2009. Now, what Rhonda Cash, she's a supervisor that absolutely hated me, and her subordinate, Jennifer Hagan, did was they sent this document over to Isaiah's pediatrician and lied to the pediatrician and said that they had Isaiah in their custody and they were not allowed to give Sarah any of Isaiah's medical documentation.
Sorry, notifications.
Does that zoom in anymore? Or is it as far as it goes?
Yeah, I
It's on my
can
phone,
see
you
that
won't be
more.
able to see. Sorry.
Is that better?
Trying to do my best.
It's
Yes.
better.
You can see the dates. It's
Well, yeah, but I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know, my vision's horrible, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's way better.
Okay.
Yeah, and they also submitted this document to Dr. Teodori too. What they didn't, the doctor they didn't submit this document to was Dr. Kevin Chapman at Barrow's Neurological Institute. So we got all of his medical records from Dr. Chapman. So the next day on May 4th, Sarah and I had to go to a meeting at the CPS office. And what we found out years later was that one of the CPS workers had called the police department. They called 911, and I actually have the police report. And they said that there was a fight at the CPS office. Well, there wasn't a fight. There was 14 officers and 7 police cars that showed up that actually held Sarah and I at that office while a social worker and 2 other cops went to our house and took Isaiah. And they were going to throw me in jail. And they were going to arrest my oldest daughter, who had Isaiah at the time. But it was during that meeting, we took all of Isaiah's medical records with us because we had them all.
All of them.
Rhonda Cash told Sarah, she slapped her hand on the table, and I'll never forget it.
She was a
Tell her,
CPS supervisor.
as long as I live. She told Sarah, I don't care what medical documents you have for Isaiah.
Your
I'm
mother's
taking
pissed
your
me
son
off.
because your mother has pissed me off.
Oh my God. So
And Rhonda Cash,
Hold on.
how does that happen? Whenever CPS comes to a home to take a child, did they force themselves in your house? How did that situation happen? Like what
They
what
tried
happened that
to.
day when that?
They tried to through intimidation and
the
coercion.
Phoenix Police Department has a contract with Child Protective Services, and they're actually mandated to go help CPS take that child. They don't use warrants in Arizona.
They don't. They do not in Arizona. They don't.
You know, the only time they can take a child without a warrant, according to federal law, is if there are extended circumstances, if that child is in immediate danger.
My kids.
Well, it's
are
obvious
not.
that Isaiah wasn't in immediate danger.
We're not in danger at all.
But the police, instead of doing their fiduciary duty to uphold the law and uphold your rights to protect and serve the public, Instead, they help CPS kidnap these children.
And the thing that is, we get wrapped up a lot in thinking that every single person within an organization that is corrupt. But a lot of times there's police officers being fed information that they are trusting that's truth, and they're doing what they think is their job. A lot of police officers, they don't necessarily know that what they're doing is criminal activity. You know, that's the really hard part to grasp, is that this is hidden so well that even the person committing the crime doesn't even know that they're committing a crime half the time. You know, they actually think that you guys are being negligent parents, whatever else that they come up with parents, and have in their eyes that authority to actually take a child. So they came and knocked on your door, and Sarah, you weren't home, you said, at that time?
No, we were at the CPS office.
We were being held at the CPS office.
Right.
Okay. So what happened at the home? What did your sister tell you, or how did you guys find out about
my oldest daughter, Erica, she was completely...
She was freaking out.
She was completely freaked out because the cops told her that if she didn't open the door and give them Isaiah, that they were going to arrest her and throw her in jail.
Did she know who it was knocking on the door to you? Did they?
Yeah, she was on the phone with us, and she was screaming and crying and didn't know what to do. Yeah. But see, Rhonda Cash also told me during that meeting, she said, and I quote, "I will ensure that you will not be a part of this case. I'm going to make sure you never see your grandson Isaiah again. And I will ensure that the judge will really be pissed off at you." So when they submitted this petition to the court, they made up all these lies about me. I would let Sarah take Isaiah to the doctor. I took him off the phenobarbital. I did this. I did that.
Well, they made my mom a target to seem like an unfit grandparent, because they're supposed to place the child with immediate family.
That's
Arizona
true.
state law and federal law mandates that if a child is removed from their parents, the grandparents are the first order of placement. Grandparents and then family members.
Yeah.
But the thing is with the federal funding, if these children that are removed from their parents are placed with grandparents or family members, CPS doesn't get the money. They don't get the money for foster care.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last thing they're going to do is place that child with grandparents or family members, because they want that federal money.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So they don't need a warrant in Arizona. They're supposed to place the child with a grandparent or grandparents. So they targeted you then, Carla, to make you seem unfit for that. And they literally took your child out of your sister's arms.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was going through your mind whenever, because you guys are at the CPS office, were you talking to anybody there about this? What was going on your side while all of this is happening and she's talking to you on the phone?
It was so chaotic. I mean, you don't have time to think in a situation like that. You don't. You know, it's like what is it? I'm thinking of fight or flight type stuff. You know what I mean? You're going to stand your ground. And when you do, that's when they threaten you with arrest and bringing up criminal charges. Like the only thing that they don't threaten you with that I know of is being murdered. You know what I mean? That's like, but everything else. Oh my God, they just they know how.
I remember one of the police officers or the cops or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. He
told me to put my hands behind my back because he was going to arrest me, and I was just standing there. You know, you're like in this meeting, and all of a sudden you've got, 7 cop cars and 14 cops, with their lights on and their sirens, and they're storming the building, and you're like, what the hell is going on here?
We didn't even know that they called the police. So it was all.
And I had to fight literally for years to get a copy of that incident report where I found out because I couldn't figure out how the cops came to that office. And the police department, the records division, had that report that someone had called 911 and claimed that there was a fight. But I got it.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Now, the other thing is that our wonderful legislators, when it comes to their attention that some of the Arizona revised statutes actually protect the parents, they actually wipe it off the books. We have some legislators that basically work for DCS, our Child Protective Services. You know, they're foster parents. They have stock or they're a stakeholder in a group home, a foster care group home, and stuff. Back in 2009, there was a statute on the books, an Arizona revised statute, that says that a child who is developmentally disabled, and Isaiah fit into that category because he had cerebral palsy, that they have to do a removal review. Now, as soon as they took Isaiah, I was on the computer, I was on the phone, and I was doing research to figure out what our rights were.
Well, let's not forget how you laid in bed for like 5 days straight.
I was absolutely devastated.
I want them to know that that's what they did to you.
Isaiah was my buddy. You know, he was just my buddy. He was my first grandson. I had 2 granddaughters, but every grandchild is different. You know, you have a different bond with each child.
And your own children.
With Isaiah being developmentally disabled, him and we just had a special bond. But anyway, because he was disabled, they were supposed to do a removal review.
Sorry.
Before a petition is filed. And it says here, if the child has a medical need or a chronic illness, the review team shall include the child's physician or registered nurse practitioner. And if the child suffers from a chronic illness, at least one member of the team shall be a physician. A child shall not be removed unless a majority of the members of the review team agree that removal is necessary. If the child has already been removed, the child shall be returned to the home. Now, we filed a complaint with the Arizona Ombudsman's Office, and we reported the fact that CPS did not do a removal review. So the lady at the Ombudsman's Office, Tara Van Ice, we found internal communication. And she wrote to Rhonda Cash, and she said, Tara Van Ice at the Ombudsman's Office said to Rhonda Cash, do you know if anyone told Sarah, as she claims,
this is my mom talking.
CPS slipped up and didn't do a review as required.
They're actual reports. Like, we have nothing to hide.
And Rhonda responded and said, no removal review was done. It was just an oversight.
They're documents, but.
So, even though we filed a complaint with the Ombudsman's Office, they never did anything. They never investigated it or nothing.
Did they give you a reason why they didn't investigate? What did they say to you when you would pursue them?
They didn't say anything. They never got back to us at all. And of course, I didn't know that at the time.
Hold on.
I started looking at the statute. until I started.
Mom, take a drink.
Until I started looking up the statutes of what they're required to do. And unfortunately, I don't have those statutes in front of me. But now, they sent Sarah a letter 16 days after they took Isaiah. And CPS predetermined that Sarah was guilty of medical neglect. There was no investigation. They didn't obtain any medical records. They didn't collaborate with any of his licensed medical professionals. And prior to any court determination, they added Sarah's name to the central registry and actually labeled her as a
child abuser.
And the medical neglect that they were claiming you were responsible for is the seizure medication. Is that right?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was sneezing. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. The medical neglect that they were accusing you of, was that still the seizure medication, or what did they add more to that they were accusing you for?
They just said it was medical neglect, that Isaiah hadn't been taken to a neurologist or a pediatrician. I mean, his last pediatrician visit was at the end of February of 2009. I think it was February 25th of 2009. He went to the pediatrician. It says right here, the mother is unable to parent due to medical neglect. The mother has refused to take the child to a neurologist or a pediatrician.
I can't hold that up.
But when they put Sarah on the central registry, they said that, and the law says that Sarah had the right to a hearing before an administrative law judge to dispute her name being put on the central registry.
Didn't happen.
Now,
got put on the registry anyways.
Denied Sarah to have that hearing.
What was the reasoning to say no?
They said that the petition was already filed, or that her name was already added. The petition was already filed, but the petition was not filed.
How did you find out that it was not filed?
Because of the date on the petition. I believe the petition wasn't filed until May 13th of 2009.
So they filed it after the claim said that they filed it. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
How can they refute that if it's literally in writing?
What?
Because there's no accountability, because, it's not just CPS, it's the judges let them get away with the fraud. The Attorney General's office.
Everybody's in on it. I'm not joking. All the agencies are in on it. You talk about it, FBI, the CIA.
True. It's true.
Man, there's people that work that were up there working, I'm not talking about President Trump, but people that have been up in the White House. Do you know what I mean? The Clintons, the Bush administration. Who was it? You know what I mean? Like, they're all in on it. I'm not saying every person is bad in the agency.
CPS workers, you've got the police department,
the doctors,
you've got
therapists,
legislators,
counselors.
They're all in on it.
What we found out is that,
schools are in on it.
Every time in these dependency proceedings, when they have the parent go take a psychological evaluation.
Sorry, mom does not, I want everybody to know, she does not have COVID. You know what I mean? Like, I promise. We're good.
But the doctors that give these psychological evaluations to the parents are not the client, the judges.
Put it this way, I was told that I was not a party to my case. Me, the mother, I was not a party to my own case.
Right. We have that. We have a document that says that. And we tried to file documents in the Court of Appeals. And the clerk told me that we can't file it because Sarah's not a party to the case.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I said, can you put that in writing? And she did.
She did.
She did.
I know. These people, they honestly, it's like they bury themselves in their own sin. I'm not kidding. Like, what happens in darkness comes to light, people. You know what I mean? It always comes to light.
Always
Well, I
comes to
appreciate
light.
you guys sharing some of these connections, because I think that that's one thing that I get a lot from listeners is they say, oh my gosh, after these episodes, your guests explain really well how things are interconnected. Because that's the part that's really hard for people to think about. It seems that it couldn't be true because they don't know how to connect those dots. They hear that this group of people might be involved, or this organization, or these elite, right? But then they hear that it happens over here too, and they're thinking, well, how does that all connect? I think one thing that your story really does well is you guys have proof of these connections, not just through your documentation, but from what you've learned ever since this, you know, and I think that that's really important to bring all of that up, is because you have that documentation of it. And I think that's really helpful for people just to start to see how the big picture works and not have it be so daunting of a thought. You know, how does this all work together? I can't wrap my mind around that. Your case does a really great job with showing how this organization is involved and how they're getting paid by this organization. As you said earlier, follow the money. You know, that's what everybody should be thinking, is how much money is one child worth, you know, whenever you go through all of this.
Right.
And why would there be organizations and greedy people who want to get back from that, who want to pay out, who want some type of a financial gain or a bonus on top of the money that they're already making to have a piece of this pie, right? This is a multi-billion-dollar industry that we're talking about. This isn't just, you know, corruption that nobody's benefiting from and just random events. This is a financial business. This is an underground industry. It's a black market, essentially, just like pharmaceuticals in a way. You know, you do this, do this favor for me, administer this much drug or sell this many prescriptions, whatever it is. Doctors get kickbacks, and we're well aware of that. Why wouldn't other industries have the same type of incentives, right? The part that your case does really well is helping to explain that. So go ahead where we left off. Like I said, I appreciate you guys connecting all those dots. It, especially in a state, it helps to see how even on a state level, this can all work together.
Yeah. Well, this is something that I want your listeners to know. I didn't know this until I had my youngest son. When you are pregnant and you go into a hospital, and you give your child a birth certificate and a social security card, they become owned by the state that they're born in.
Property.
That is very important for them to know. So the reason that I'll get back into this later. But I just think that that's so very important, especially if there's any of your listeners that have an open CPS case, or they know someone and they're pregnant and they don't want this baby to be taken. They need to go in anonymous. Okay, they don't have to give reasons why. Go in anonymous.
Yeah, that's what we did when Sarah gave birth to her fourth son, Jaden. We went in, and because we found out with her second son they have what's called a hit list that CPS submits to the hospitals if they know that that mother that had a prior child removed. They'll know if that mother is going to give birth to a second or a third child. They submit a document called a hit list. And so
It's true.
when she gave birth to Jaden, she went in anonymously. So if CPS contacts the hospital or whatever, then they don't know that she's there having a child. And we got to bring Jaden home for like 8 months.
Yeah, it was nice.
Okay, so mothers it's not a law that they have to give all that personal information whenever they check into a hospital. They can just be anonymous and not give any of that.
Right.
Yeah,
I think we
definitely.
use the excuse that, Sarah was in a bad relationship and she wants the father to know that she was giving birth. So they just put her in as patient X.
Okay.
I don't know if they did that for sure.
And is that every state you can do that? Are there any exceptions to?
I don't know about any laws that cover that, but HIPAA protects your privacy. But I guess obviously HIPAA has nothing to do with CPS. They have a way of getting around that. Obviously they do, because CPS was going into Isaiah's medical records before they even ever kidnapped him. So, going through documents. So in May 2009, they take Isaiah because they're saying that he was medically neglected by Sarah and his family, right? So here we are, 17.5 months into the court case, right?
He was never medically neglected.
And,
Never. Ever.
Oh my gosh, I cannot stop coughing.
I bet my whole heart and soul on that. He's
Amy
never.
Cromer, a CPS worker, that's Exhibit D2. I found a fax cover sheet dated October 26, 2010, requesting that they get Isaiah's medical records. So, if he was taken like 17 and a half months earlier for medical neglect, why is it they're trying to get his medical records in October of 2010? Okay. And then in December 2010, Exhibit D3, one of Sarah's court-appointed pretenders, and I'll tell you, they're not an attorney.
Who? Wait,
They're
name names.
a pretender, Sandra Machado. She did note to the court that she says counsel for the mother has concerns with DES caseworkers' report, as well as the lack of production of the children's medical records. Now, so Amy Cromer from CPS requests those records in October of 2010. And then in December of 2010, they're still not submitted to the court. Well, you know what? CPS never intended to submit those medical records because they would have proved Sarah's innocence of medical neglect. Those medical records for Isaiah were maliciously withheld from the court.
Yeah.
So they could keep Isaiah in foster care. They could take his brother, Wilfredo, in October of 2009 and keep those boys. And the only reason they took her second son, Wilfredo, directly from the hospital was because they already took Isaiah. Now, if we step back a minute here, the very first minute entry written by Judge Kathy Holt.
She's a corrupt judge. Very, very corrupt.
I don't know if I sent it to you.
She kidnaps lots and lots of children. If she's not even on the bench.
Hold on, let me find it here. Oh,
if she is, she's
Exhibit
still doing it.
H1. This minute entry is the very first court hearing that we had for Isaiah. And I'll tell you, I went to every court hearing with Sarah. Every single one. Hell or high water wasn't going to keep me away from these court hearings.
Wow.
But May 13th of 2009, Judge Kathy Holt states in this minute entry, it is ordered, continue the child, Isaiah Emery Johnson, as a temporary ward of the court to prevent abuse and neglect. And that's on paragraph 5. So
I won't be able to see it,
they
but
took him claiming medical neglect, but now they're saying that they took him to prevent abuse and neglect.
Yeah, can you zoom on that, Emma? Where it states, oh, I'm stuttering. Where it states, sorry. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah. Where's that? Yep.
Yeah. So, do CPS workers have some sort of crystal ball where they're going to step in and take your child away from you to prevent a possible abuse and neglect?
And that's the grounds, essentially, if you had to sum it up, that's basically what they told you, right? There's no other reason other than an assumption.
Right. They didn't have any, when we went through all the court hearings, and I'm telling you, there was too many to even count.
Oh my gosh, it got so bad, Emma, that
bad.
we got so popular in there. I'll put it that way. We got so popular in those courthouses that we had sheriff deputies and security from the courts watching us, going in the courtroom, supervising us. And when the judge wanted us out, or wanted the attorney general, or whatever, whomever wanted my mom out, they'd kick her out. I've been kicked out of a court hearing before. I mean, not because of anything that we do, because we're not disruptive or anything.
But they know. I mean, I
stands her ground.
I have been quite an advocate, and I have had no mercy exposing the criminal acts of these judges that are what you call legislating from the bench.
You can't have mercy on evil.
You cannot. No mercy on those. No.
What they do in these courtrooms is they violate your due process rights. And one thing that the listeners need to know is that, and this is very important, is that when fraud is committed upon the court, okay, so when these CPS workers go in and lie to the court, saying, Mom's done this, Mom's done that, the courts do not have jurisdiction over the parties, and they don't have jurisdiction over the subject matter. So any court proceeding that is perpetrated by fraud, all the orders that are issued in that case are null and void. They're not worth the paper they're written on, because it's all fraud.
Just like the executive orders that Biden's out there putting out, those are all flushed down the toilet.
They're all fraud because he's not the legitimate president.
No, I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there. Oh, I'm sorry. Biden's not my president. Just saying, that's a good point. Hey, this isn't your average interview. No, we've talked. I've had plenty of politics on these, so I welcome. It's an open conversation. I welcome all of that. It's good for people to be informed. Hopefully, people are taking some notes and can go research some of this themselves if they want. Laugh a little, smile a little.
But I sure ruffled Rhonda Cash's feathers, because I'm telling you, even after they took Isaiah, when they took Sarah's second son, her third son, and her fourth son, Rhonda Cash was still involved, because these other CPS workers, and I don't know, there was a lot of them.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot.
Some of them actually quit when we got through with them.
There's a lot.
But in September of 2009, a CPS worker wrote, "Maternal grandmother is restricted from having any contact with Isaiah." In October 2009, listen to this. Carla Johnson, with whom CPS has major concerns. Maternal grandmother has not been shown to be a placement that would be consistent with meeting the child's needs and being a part of the CPS team. Well, I didn't volunteer to be a part of the CPS team because I have morals and character. And I have a conscience.
Amen.
I have a moral compass that I can't go in and steal these children and destroy these families. I never wanted to be a part of the CPS team. So, and then here we go in September of 2011 with Sarah's third son, Josiah. CPS workers write, contact with his maternal family should be restricted. So,
this real quick, I'd love for you guys to talk about those instances too. So the first instance, your sister was home. People are knocking on the door. You guys are not home. And that situation
Just
happens.
listen to this,
What
everyone.
happened the following instances to leading up to both of them?
you mean when they came in, they took
when they took Freddie. Oh, we're gonna call him Freddie.
Perfect.
well, they took Freddie directly from the hospital when he was 4 days old.
Oh my gosh.
I
begged for my.
they just said neglect.
Yeah, I begged for them to keep him in the hospital an extra day because they were going to take him.
You had no idea that they were going to come take him.
No, I knew. Because to get me away from CPS, my mother and my OBGYN petitioned me into the psych ward because my baby was not losing weight.
Or gaining weight.
Gaining weight. Gaining weight. I'm so sorry.
Sarah was so stressed out that I had a conversation with her OBGYN and we decided to kind of put Sarah in a retreat somewhere.
I wanted to die. Are you kidding me? I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. Okay. I mean, your viewers need to know the truth. This will. You know how many parents kill themselves over this every single day? I'm not going to shy away from saying that.
Fathers do. They commit suicide.
I'm not. I want everybody to know this is the cause and effect of how evil it is all the way around.
But I remember going to the hospital to visit Sarah when she gave birth to Freddie. And I saw these evil social workers coming out of the hospital. And they stopped me and told me that they were going to take him because they had Isaiah.
Yeah.
And so now when they took her second son, now they're claiming they've come up with these false allegations that Sarah's got mental health issues, she's got
Substance abuse
issues,
domestic
violence issues. So now they're just pouring on these.
And these are standard, though. These are standard allegations that they give everyone.
They're pulling all these allegations out of their butt.
There was never anything that they could back it up with. It was just an allegation. You were never accused of these crimes. This was never something that.
No, the thing
you were accused. These were allegations made against you.
Yeah, I understand that.
But they never had any evidence to.
Right.
They were never substantiated the allegations to make them true.
Right. But with my second born, Freddie, the father he has a criminal background for drugs.
But wait. So after they take Isaiah or Freddie from the hospital 4 days old, we find an internal communication note from one CPS worker that says, that there was substance abuse, and she didn't understand why they were taking him because his what's that test they give you after they give the baby?
The urine test, the drug test.
They give the babies a test after they're born to check for drugs and stuff.
None of my children have been born with any
and
drugs.
he tested negative. So
I'm just saying that's probably what could have.
but she didn't understand why she was being asked to take this child because he didn't test positive for any drugs.
And this child didn't have, did you take the same medications this time?
What do you mean?
No, Sarah had a different doctor because after I told Dr. Jenkins to get her checkbook out for the medical malpractice, she closed her practice and moved back east and opened a practice back there.
It doesn't mean that she's.
You guys, hold on real quick. I need to do something.
Okay, so you didn't get administered the
Hold
same
on.
drugs while you were giving birth.
No.
So this child was born completely healthy. Were there any issues?
No, not with my last